Hello, it's Hannah, and you are listening to No Longer Legally Detained, the podcast about life after the psych ward, answering the big question, how to navigate being an adult when you never expected to be one.
Hello and welcome back. I hope everyone is well and you're all looking after yourselves. Today I'm going to be chatting about autism and friendship. Two things which often seem at loggerheads and concepts which many from both the autistic community and also those from outside find really tricky to navigate and understand. I've always struggled with friendship, but that doesn't mean I've never had friends, never wanted friends, or that my friendships aren't deep, meaningful and beautiful. Recently I have been seeing so many young autistic adults asking about friendship, whether that be support, advice, or to just feel less alone in difficulties that they are facing. I am by no means an expert, but I wanted to share my friendship experiences and how I went from not understanding friendship to being a surface level friend to having no friends at all to meeting some of the bestest friends I could have ever asked for. So grab a drink, grab a snack, put me on loudspeaker as you go about your jobs, and let's get into the topic of friendship and autism. Growing up, I have always struggled with friendship. I've been known to say that I never really had any friends, but this comes with context, because what I really mean is that up until recently, I had never really experienced true friendship. I personally believe there is a difference between rubbing alongside people and true friendship. Friendship should be an equal partnership. You should feel safe and comfortable to be yourself around your closest friends. And for me, that has only just started to happen. That's not to say that there weren't people in my life before that couldn't have become closer friends. However, in many of those situations, I just wasn't in a place to give enough to the friendship. I didn't know myself or my own difficulties or even who I was. I was also in the depths of mental illness and just in no position to enter a friendship. For me, the short time I spent in sixth form definitely springs to mind. It was there that I, for the first time, kind of really felt love and support from the girls that I hung out with. They truly seemed to like me and treat me as an equal and want to spend time with me outside of the classroom. However, I wasn't really in a place to be receptive to this, but I am forever grateful for them for including me, even when I wasn't really very lucid. In school before this, I had friendships, but they all had their very big fair share of challenges, difficulties, and all ended in disaster. Looking back now, I know that this is because I'm autistic. Being PDA, I was very socially driven. However, there was no substance behind this meaning. I just didn't get what friendship really was. I got myself into situations I didn't understand, and in many cases, we all got hurt. I find it really sad to look back on, actually. Not just for myself, but for other people that were in these situations. We were all young, we were struggling and learning. In all the friendships that I have had, which became toxic and ended badly, I have no hard feelings for anyone involved. There isn't blame to be put in any direction, it's just a sad situation. It did, however, leave me feeling like there was something wrong with me. Looking back, this is a classic sign of being autistic. I remember Googling how to be a friend or how to make friends and why am I not any good at being a friend. My heart breaks for this little girl who just felt so lost, broken and like a problem. Friendship issues for me were then compounded by having to drop out of school and spending a long time in hospital. It's weird, as in school I only ever had one or two friends maximum at a time, but when I entered hospital I found a new weird kind of popularity. That's not to say that I was popular, but in hospital the hierarchies which are in school and the social kind of etiquette is different, and with there only being a very few young people with relatively similar experiences, you tend to think that on the surface you will get on, or if you really don't get on, you really, really, really don't get on, and that's a whole nother conversation. It was weird as this artificial environment almost gave me practice in terms of a friendship. Looking back, apart from a very few, these relationships weren't really friendships and probably quite toxic for all involved. And that's not to say that years later, some of them I still speak to and are amazing friends. But obviously, kind of looking at where we were for obvious reasons, that is very few and far between. But it was these encounters in a time where I had no boundaries and no kind of social understanding that I actually started to begin to develop friendship. Friendship as a concept is pretty bizarre. And then when you add in a social communication disorder, it can leave quite a bitter taste left behind. However, I think autistic or not, friendships are something which are worked on, a skill which we acquire, but most importantly, I feel the best friendships I have made are since I really know who I was. Any relationship is a two-way process, and with that, both parts need to feel like they are equal and that ultimately they know who they are themselves. It's completely natural as we grow up to copy others, change who we are to fit in, and just grow and change as people. The person we are at 13 is different to the person we will be at 15, 20, 30, etc. That being said, it doesn't mean that those friendships were wrong, that the friendship you had when you were 13 may have fit perfectly at the time. They're just part of our story, and they are the experiences that have helped create us, and at the time, they may have been exactly what we needed. Losing friendship is hard, but I'm a solid believer that those who are meant to stay will stay. For some people are only a paragraph, others a page, some a chapter, and some a couple of chapters. Some may even be a whole book, and while others even might make a full series. People come and go. We grow and change, and with that, the people we align with, click, may also change. This is tough for the neurotypical to process. So as autistic people, this constant uncertainty and the ups and downs of human emotion can be near on impossible to read. It's definitely a myth that all autistic people don't want friends. In fact, I would imagine most autistic people want friends. However, we don't necessarily want to have friends in the neurotypical way of friendship. For me, when I was working out how to navigate friendship, it was working out what did it actually mean to me? Why did I want a friend? And with that of what I wanted, is that actually the capacity of what a friend is? A friend isn't a carer. A friend isn't someone to look after you. It isn't somebody who does everything you say, but equally a friend isn't someone who you feel uncomfortable around or someone you have to change yourself to be with. A friend isn't someone who puts upon you just how you don't put upon them. That doesn't, however, mean a friend isn't someone who deeply cares, someone who will help you out and will make reasonable adjustments and love you for you, quirks and all. It's tricky to fully explain what friendship is, and it means different things to different people. But in all aspects of friendship, there should be an equal partnership. That isn't to say that as an autistic person, we may not need adjustments, just like we do in any other situation. But with any reasonable adjustment, it leads to equity, and not one person being better off than the other. So, how can you support an autistic friend? That is a great question. First thing to mention is that we are still in fact human and not actually aliens. It is also important to preface that we are all individual, unique, and what works for one autistic person may not work for another. The classic quote of when you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. And as with anything, comorbidities and life experiences shape who we are as people. The main piece of advice I would give you is to just love us, listen to us, and communicate with us. I can't speak for everyone, but for myself, I don't need you to save me. A friendship isn't entering into a care agreement, and please don't patronise or question our abilities. In a friendship, I want it to be equal. I want to give as much as you and receive as much as you. When I think about my closest friendships, they all know I'm autistic. However, I also know that they know so much more. Autism and ADHD are just a lens I view the world. It's what makes me me and makes me who I am, and probably some of the reasons why they love me. But in a neurotypical world, I do have my challenges. I find open communication to be the best, and some of my friends have even asked to read my support passport just for their own interest. They know they're not my carers. However, as one once said, I love you and I care about you, and want to help you in the same way I want to help my neurotypical friends. We all need adjustments, and I want to be there for you in whatever way I can, and that's because I care. I'm always worried that in friendships, people are going to think that I'm hard work or too much, or the essential reassurance I need is overbearing. I imagine it is annoying, and the need for constant reassurance in all parts of my life, and then the reassurance that it's okay to the fact that I need reassurance. It's a hard line to balance, but when we feel safe and comfortable around someone who are able to be ourselves, autistic people can make absolutely amazing friends. We are fiercely loyal, honest, and in my opinion, I'm at least a little bit fun to be around. You aren't expected to do anything over and above, but if you want to support your autistic friend, speak to them, ask them, and be open to actively listening to what they say. If you know nothing about autism or only have one representation, it might be worth checking out some autistic content creators or blogs or representation through the media to see how autism can present very differently person to person. It's also worth mentioning that neurodivergent people can be very sensitive to perceived rejection. That doesn't mean we are allowed to get away with things or you can't call us out on things which we have done that hurt you. Absolutely do. We struggle with any sort of subtle hint, so open communication is vital. But it's also worth bearing in mind our reaction may be over the top or seem out of proportion. We also may not be able to get over it as quickly as a neurotypical, and we will often really take it to heart. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't have these conversations with us, but it might be worth taking into consideration where and when would be best. Is this something that you want to come back from? And if so, reassuring us that you don't hate us and that we all make mistakes and that you still want to be our friend is really helpful. We might get really, really upset. And this isn't to take away from you or what we've done or your feelings or how you're perceived in the situation. It's just how our brain is wired. I know for me, I will be so deeply apologetic and probably want to harm myself as the feelings are just so overpowering. This is really hard to deal with as a friend, but having open and honest conversations from the start and when everyone is feeling calm and in a good space is key. The same goes for meltdowns. I know my closest friend is amazing when I have a meltdown, and we spoke before I had one about what to do if it happened. She knows the me in a meltdown isn't the me and that it will pass and that they don't make me less of a person or take anything away from why she really likes me. It's definitely hard, and as autistic people we need to take accountability and responsibility for being honest with who we are and what we struggle with. That doesn't mean trauma dumping the first time we hang out, but also trying to show our authentic selves, as then we will attract the people who like us for us and not the mask that we portray. As autistic people, we are at a disadvantage, and it's not an even playing field. We will have to put in extra effort, and rightly or wrongly, that just is the way it is. We will make mistakes, we will get hurt, but equally we can make some of the most amazing and beautiful connections, which don't just change our own lives, but change the lives of those around us. The biggest thing we can do is understand ourselves. We need to learn who we are, what we like, and what makes us tick. We need to love ourselves as much as we can and be honest about our faults, difficulties, and challenges. To be honest, this is really just the key to all friendships, not just those who are autistic. Friendship is a wild ride. Entering into other people's world opens you up for things that you can't control. But willing to take this risk, the rewards really can be endless. So what can we do as autistic people to be a good friend? First things first is to learn who you are and begin to unmask. With this, you bring your authentic self into the space. Of course, this must be done safely. But when you enter as you, there is nothing for people to be surprised about later down the line. That being said, another very big part of friendship is compromise. It has to be equitable, which might not be equal, but ultimately the balance evens out. This is real life and not a simulation, as much as it can sometimes feel like one. So nothing will ever be perfect or exact. This is hard as an autistic, but knowledge is power, and knowing something allows us to be prepared. As people, we have our own unique selling points, which some people will love and others will hate. A friendship is a two-way contract, and some people just might not be for you, and that's okay. Hopefully both parts can be amicable and move on, although sadly we know this isn't always the case. Friendship is something which has to be worked on and only thrives off open communication. Talk to your friend about your autism, answer questions they have, and be prepared that they will, just like you, make mistakes. It's not the mistake, but the reaction, how we move forward, that counts. If you have someone in your life you really trust, it might be good to sound off these situations with them to get a different perspective. It's going to be hard and you will mess up, probably quite a lot. But each interaction is learning and helps you grow and develop. Friendships are something which we all have to work on, whether we're autistic or not. As autistic people, we just tend to overthink and overanalyze more, which is both a blessing and a curse. But how do you actually make friends? This is an age-old question and one I think you'll find many adults struggle with. Making friends as an adult is a whole new ballgame, but there are strategies and support out there. The first thing to mention is you probably won't be best friends with the first person you meet. And if you go in and ask them to be your best friend, move in or go on holiday with you, you might get some strange and even concerned looks. However, it's also important just to ask. Recently I went to an event and afterwards someone messaged me who we'd kind of spoken at the event and was like, would you like to meet up? If they hadn't had the bravery to ask, we wouldn't have become friends. Now we've met up a couple of times, text regularly and get on super well. The worst someone can say is no, and then you probably won't even see them again anyway. It is, however, important to be safe, and as autistic adults, we can be more vulnerable to people who don't always have the best intentions. Always go with your gut and talk things through with other people, and always make sure safety comes first. That being said, Some of the ways people make friends is joining a group or club in an area of interest, whether that be sport, music, art, any of those kind of things, because you know that other people there will have common ground. There are now quite a few adult friend clubs, whether those be on Facebook or on Instagram, and some of them also do in-person meetups. There are also apps like Solly where girls, women and non-binary people can make connections and receive support. Some charities and local authorities have peer support groups for autistic people, and this might be a way for some people to make friends and connections. For me, however, I found that I made friends when I stopped actively looking and panicking. I know that's so cliche to say, however, for me it really was true. And that didn't mean that I didn't make the effort or actively do things. It just meant I didn't put quite so much pressure on the end result. That I could connect with someone, see how it goes, and not panic that this person had to be the one. It's a process, and one where you will definitely mess up, where others will mess up and mistakes will be made. You might think someone's your friend, but then later on realise that actually as you've got to know them, you don't maybe have as much in common, or your values and things in life just don't align, and that's okay. Equally, as you grow, you may both just grow apart, and that is absolutely fine. There is no set route or path, and it's definitely trial and error. If you bring your authentic self, are willing to compromise, listen and learn, and bring kindness, compassion and understanding to everything you do, you're doing the best you can, and to be honest, probably better than most people. Friendship is complicated, and connections can be really difficult, but connections don't have to look just one way. I think for me, the reason I wanted a friend was to battle the loneliness that I felt. But loneliness can be battled in lots of ways than just one singular best friend. Absolutely, having a close friend really is amazing and meaningful. But in terms of combating loneliness, there are lots of other ways that you can make connections and be around people that doesn't take quite as much intensity that a best friendship can. I know being on the Solly app for me is something that I can connect with other people, give advice, hear about things, but it isn't as deep and intertwining, which is for me, I find really hard to be in lots of those kind of things because it takes a lot out of me. It's also worth remembering that you have not met all of the people that you will be friends with in your life. And that's exciting because there's so many people that could be around the corner and people who you never expected. I hope that was helpful and gave you a little bit of an insight into the mind of an autistic person when it comes to friendship. If you are autistic, hopefully it gave you some tips and tricks and strategies to try. Remember that you are amazing as who you are. Be your authentic self because you will find the people and attract the people who understand, get and want to be around you. I hope everybody has an amazing week. Take care. Lots of love. Speak soon.